Well, today I'm going to make my first miniature toy, and I want to make a pull toy. I got this idea from, of course, somebody else, but I'm not copying the exact toy that I saw here on YouTube. And I was just looking through some of my miniature toys, and I decided on doing the deer. I thought the deer might be nice because I could do a Christmas scene, and that could be a Christmas toy. So I have this miniature plastic deer that I've had sitting around for some time. And I'm just going to cut out a base. I actually have an antique pull toy. It's a horse, and it was from probably around 1900. And it had little tin wheels on it, so I decided to use these vintage, what do you call these things? Sequins, yes. And they have a hole in the middle, and I'm going to double them up to make them a little sturdier. And I have some pins that are used for jewelry making, and they're brass. So I'm going to just use a little bit of tacky glue and put it in between the sequins because tacky glue is very sticky and it dries clear. And I'll stick them on the ends of these pins. I am having a little trouble with the focus on my camera. I'm still trying to get used to how it works. It's a little slow, so I'm sorry if some of the stuff comes out a little blurry. So again, I'm just going to put a little bit of tacky glue in each center so that they stick together, and it'll give them a little bit more weight. I thought about using beads. I had those large ones you can see on the table there, but they were way too big, and I didn't have anything smaller. So sequins are going to work out just fine, and they look more authentic actually. And there's the tacky glue. And I'm just sticking it through the middle of the hole. And the end of these jewelry pins is big enough so it won't go through all the way. I had to go through a couple of different sizes to get the right ones. And I'm using a generous amount of glue. And I'm just wiping off the excess as I go around. And I'll just let these dry. Probably these wheels won't turn. I'm not real concerned about that anyway. And the next thing I'm going to do is take that little piece of balsa wood that I cut. I'm going to actually layer it so there's two pieces, and I'll put the wheel studs between the two pieces. And first I'm just going to give a little coat of yellow ochre, and I'm using golden paint. That's the brand, Golden. And I'll just go around and paint that just to get it started. And the balsa wood's quite thin, so it's kind of rubbery. The paint should stiffen it up a bit. So I'll just finish that up. I just have a straight pin sticking in the bottom to try to control the paint and not get too much on my hands. It just makes it a little bit neater. And next I'm going to paint the little stag, and I have a couple different colors that I'm going to use for that. This is a matte finish, and it's a pretty dark beige. It's almost brown. I'll give a coat first of that. And then I'll alter the colors a little bit after that, after this dries. I'm just using tweezers here to hold this. So I'll have to turn it around because there'll be gaps where the tweezers were. I wanted to paint it because I didn't want it to look so plasticky. They used to make these little toys out of a combination of wood and chalk in some cases, and then they would put flocking over the animal. I have a horse. As I said, that's a pull toy that's from the turn of the century. So I'm basing the structure of this on that particular toy. I'm just mixing a little burnt sienna from golden, and I'll have a little black involved too with that matte beige, dark beige, and I'll give it a coat, another coat, the whole stag before I put in the details. And we'll just let that dry, and I'll go back and patch up the places that were, it won't stand up. What I had to do is go back in and bend one of the legs carefully because it was bent back too far, and that's why it wouldn't stand. But I'll need to paint some hoofs on it, and I'm going to paint the antlers a little bit darker and put some white spots on the back and put little black dots for eyes and for the nose. And I'll let this dry before I do too much. I'm just going to dot those eyes in and the nose right away. And I painted the hoofs too. And sorry that's not focused, but I was just painting the hoofs very, very little bit on the ends. What I'm finding when you paint small like this is that you have to really use very small brushes, and I'm using very thin. Some of the bristles they're actually for oil painting, and they're sable. And there's some of these brushes only have a few hairs in them. And there I'm going to just put the dots on. And then I'll go back if there's any places that need to be touched up after it dries to make sure it looks pretty decent. I know it's hard to see what I'm doing, but I think you get the idea. And I'm just darkening the antlers a little bit at the ends and going around the ear so that the ear, you can see the ear a little better. I'm not going for any terrific realism here. I really want my miniatures to look like toys. And I do admire all of the miniatures that look like exact replicas, but that's not the look I'm going for with the dollhouse that I'm redoing. I'm using 1930s style toys, and the ones I'm patterning, that was easy for me to say, I'm patterning them after the Cage toys and the Strombecker toys. And they were toys that were chunkier, they weren't very detailed, but I really think they're charming and it'll fit the dollhouse better. So I'm not trying to make the things that I make look terribly realistic. I'm just going in and touching it up, and I'm going to let him dry. I'll probably do some more touch-up later. And I'm going to work on the base a little bit more. And yeah, sorry, I don't have that really in the film, but I really didn't do much there. I just touched it up a little bit with some more ochre paint. And I'm just going to clean up a little bit and get some things out of my way. And there he is, he's dry. And I touched him up. And like fallow deer, he has the spots on the back. We don't have deer that look like this around here. We have white-tailed deer, which they look similar, but they don't get those spots. And there's another piece of the base that hasn't been painted yet. And I'm just going to use some wood glue. I'm going to see how far I have to trim these stems off. so that I can place the stems pretty much in the middle so it doesn't come apart. Just give them a quick trim with some wire cutters. And I'm going to save all those little bits because that's just what I do. I might need them for something else. I have cups that I save these things in, and to go back and reuse them. And there's the 4 wheels. And now I'm going to paint the bottom or the top. I'm not sure which one's going to be the bottom or the top. They're the same size. And of course I just cut them out with an X-Acto knife, measured them. Touch that one up a little bit more. It had a little bit of smudging on it. This time I didn't use the needle. You can see the pin sitting there. And I have paint all over my hands. For some reason I couldn't get the needle into the end of this one. I don't know why, it just wouldn't go in, so I gave up on it. And as you see, I have paint all over my hands. It does make it a little messy, but you know, you do what you have to do. And those will dry. As soon as those are dry, I will put the wood glue on them. They'll get touched up again in the end to make sure that they are evenly coated. I can see a few spots, but that right now doesn't really matter. Okay. I'm going to cut a little string, a pull string, out of some nylon cord and tie a knot in each end. I'm not going to burn these knots. I'm just going to pull them really hard, and then I'll put a little glue over them so that they don't come undone. There's the nylon cord. A nice bright red one. The toy that I had, there were little pieces of red string caught in the end. And I'm just going to turn a little piece of that wire and use that as a grommet. And I'm just squeezing it so that it's small and that won't pull through like that. And I'll put another knot on the other end. You see how easy this is to make. This is simple construction. And I'm going to just put that little dot of glue on both sides to just keep it from unraveling. As I said before, I don't want to burn these. And if there's too much of a tail hanging out, I'll just trim it off. Now I'm going to use the wood glue to put a generous amount on it. And then I'll place the wheels so that they're pretty much lined up with each other. As I said before, I don't expect these wheels to turn. This is not a toy that, it's for show. Once I put my dollhouse together, all the pieces are going to go in permanently. I'm not going to be taking them out and rearranging things. I know a lot of people like to redress their dollhouses, but I'm not going to do that with this particular dollhouse. Now I need to cut that piece of wire so that that will fit in the front. And I'll just put it between the pieces of wood. Put a little more glue on there just to make sure. And it'll ooze out. I'll just have to trim it off later. And I can do that with an X-Acto knife. And then I'll paint it again a little bit here and there so that it looks like it should. And there's the base. So that will dry. And then I will just glue the little deer onto the platform the moving platform with some super glue, gel super glue. But I have to wait till everything completely dries before I do that. And I did let this dry overnight, and I trimmed off the glue when it was dry. I'm just taking some of that excess glue off with a paintbrush right now. I'm not painting it actually, just rubbing it around. I did end up putting a clamp on it, a small clamp. And there's that beige paint that I used for the deer and the golden paint. And I'm just giving it a couple little touch-ups. And there he is, finished. And I've glued him on, and there he is. A couple of the wheels turned, but some of them got a little bit glued on. And that does look, that base, more like the antique one that I have. And they did make these right up into the 1930s, I think. And there he goes. The doll you see on the right is actually a horseman doll. And there he is on the mantle, just so you can see him. And I do have a little boy doll that goes with this doll. I made her dress out of Liberty of London fabrics. I had some scraps, and I will show how I make these dresses later in another video. And I repainted her face too. And that's the mother doll that will be in the dollhouse. And there's my little toy deer. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll subscribe and comment and like this video. Bye-bye.